Welcome everyone tonight to Cultivating a Growth Mindset. This series is brought to you by the Biointegrative Health International Center in a collaboration with Dress for Success Twin Cities out of Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. My name is Megan Miley. I'm the program director at Dress for Success Twin Cities. We are an international nonprofit. Our worldwide headquarters is located in New York City, and our affiliate for Dress for Success Twin Cities is located in St. Paul, Minnesota. We are really excited to have this presentation tonight by Karen Aulwes Deuschle, and she is a digital experience and communications leader for GE Aviation. Karen, can you move it to the next slide? And I'm going to talk a little bit about Empower You, which is our programming here at Dress for Success Twin Cities.
You want that one?
Yeah, can you move it to the next one? Oh, I wonder if we're not screen sharing anymore. It's on an old screen. I'm seeing the front page, the title page.
It might be getting very slow. Let me go back here.
No problem. And you know what? You're all seeing growth mindset in action.
Yes.
Which is not a bad thing. I think, when you're dealing with technology, growth mindset is truly the only way at this point in time. I have found no perfection. In fact, we were struggling to get onto the site tonight because there were some technical issues, and I messaged Karen and I said, hey, there's some tech issues, and she said, I would expect no less. So it's pretty common. Let me tell you about Empower You. Empower You are the services for Dress for Success Twin Cities, and we have 5 pillars of success. So we assist women ages 18 and over with career advancement, connections, and clothing for employment. We believe that women advance their careers through access, and that includes our digital literacy programming, connection, which is our positive network of support programming, wellness, health and wellness, stability, financial stability, and leadership development and influence. Cultivating a growth mindset falls under our leadership development programming because it is so essential to leadership to be able to cultivate a growth mindset. All righty, let me go ahead and introduce Karen to all of you. Karen has been involved in Dress for Success Twin Cities for more than 5 years, helping in the Career Center, facilitating courses, and currently is an integral part of our program committee. Karen currently works in learning and development at GE Aviation, responsible for developing and implementing a learner-centric strategy for digital learning tools, resources, programs, and offerings, as well as the marketing and communication efforts. Karen has nearly 20 years experience in communications, digital, web, thought leadership, social media, and learning and development. From working in a nonprofit association management group to a marketing thought leadership role at Thomson Reuters. She later transitioned to the Thomson Reuters corporate learning and development team as the manager of digital experience and communications. Karen holds not one, but 2 master's degrees, a Master of the Arts in Management and a Master of the Arts in International Business. Her bachelor's degree is in mass communications with minors in marketing and global studies. She lives in Lakeville, Minnesota with her husband and teenage daughter. Thank you, Karen. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Megan. And I will say my teenage daughter just turned 16. And if you've ever had to teach somebody how to drive, that is a whole new learning curve on its own. Wow, that is.
Oh, talk about growth mindset for both parent and child.
Oh my goodness, and all the patience building that you can possibly have. Well, thank you everyone for joining tonight, taking time out of your Tuesday evening. I hope I can provide something that's valuable for you. Megan actually reached out to me on this particular topic because she said she remembered me talking about it probably 2 years ago, because growth mindset is something I'm particularly interested in. And she got super lucky because it just so happens that in the last 3 months, I have been doing a ton of research and writing reports around this exact same thing for GE Aviation as we're trying to build out that culture of growth mindset for our own organization. So GE is a 250,000 person organization. And just to make it clear, we are even having a problems getting people to understand the importance of growth mindset. So this is something important to learn about, important to be able to put into place because it's definitely what people are looking for. I want to talk a little bit about my bio and what Megan just went through, not because I want to have my face stuck up here with my bad haircut, but what I really want to talk about is how it speaks to the power of learning, which is obviously what we're going to be going through a bit today. So in 2013, I moved from a 60-person nonprofit that serviced 6 obscure sciences to a 50,000 person technology and legal company that supports lawyers. I had minimal legal background, and my job actually was to be the absolute expert in the role of corporate counsel. So these are the lawyers that work inside a company. Now, my director, she could have hired an ex-lawyer. There are plenty of people applying to that job as ex-lawyers. She could have hired someone in the company, but she hired me, and she specifically gave me the feedback that she did it because yes, we had the right chemistry, and yes, I had a really good background, but she hired me because she said if I could figure out these 6 obscure sciences, there is no way I couldn't figure out corporate counsel. She hired me solely on her faith in my learning ability. And that was huge. 4 years later, the same thing happened. Through a friend, I was introduced into the learning and development team. I had 0 learning background. I did not know a thing, but I was able to convince the people that were to hire me that I could figure it out and that I would be able to do it. And I would be able to use my expertise and learn what I needed to. Now, fast forward 4 years later, I am a leader on my team. I've been hired into a new company for doing learning and development. I know the most on my team when it comes to learning theory, philosophy, and learning technology. People come to me all the time to advise them, and so many people in my organization have no clue that 5 years ago, I knew nothing about this. So that is how much I learned in 4 years. It's just the matter of your curiosity, building it, and having this mindset in place to make this happen. That's how I was able to use learning to build my career. And this type of growth and this type of movement could not have been done without a growth mindset. So I want to go a little bit into our agenda, real quick, real simple agenda. The definition of a growth mindset, why you need to have a growth mindset, and tips for how you can cultivate a growth mindset. So real quick, introducing ourselves into that mindset. Real basic definition here. A mindset in general is a set of beliefs and attitudes shaped by your experiences, thoughts, and feelings. Now, one of the most famous people in the world of mindset is Carol Dweck. She has been doing amazing work for probably a couple decades now. And I love even on the title of her book, she says how you can fulfill potential when the concepts of both throughout parenting, business, school, and relationships. And a lot of her research actually centers around students. But really what her main philosophy, what she's best known for, is this concept of fixed versus growth mindset. So I'm going to just skip ahead to this one here. So according to Ms. Dweck's now famous work on mindsets, someone with a fixed mindset believes that basic qualities like intelligence and creative abilities are simply fixed traits. They spend time documenting those abilities instead of really developing it. They believe that this talent that they have right now is what creates success without any added effort. The downside of this is an aversion to constructive feedback and coaching, plus a fear of taking risks and challenges. A growth mindset, on the other hand, is the belief that our basic abilities can be improved through dedication, hard work, good strategies, and input from others. This makes intelligence and talent the starting points, supplemented by continual learning. Those with this mindset see challenges as opportunities for growth and are more resilient in the face of failure. And really, a lot of what Carol Dweck's research comes down to is that this fixed growth versus growth mindset starts to form at a very early age. People with fixed mindsets react differently to praise than those with growth mindsets. She's found that children who are praised for their intelligence often tend to adopt a fixed mindset and actually reject new challenges. In tests, they wanted to bask in their success and did not want to risk revealing any of their weaknesses. Students who were told that they had high abilities did not like being asked to solve harder problems. They said that the extra work took away from their enjoyment of learning. At the same time, students who were praised for trying really hard and making an effort liked working on harder problems. In trials, praising a child's ability even worked to reduce his or her IQ, but praising a child for trying harder raised IQ totals. So wanted to bring that up just because you can see at the very early ages, we are being almost trained to have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. And to make things absolutely clear, an individual with a fixed mindset and an individual with a growth mindset absolutely has the same potential. It really comes down to mindset, that collection of thoughts and beliefs that shape your thought habits. And the good news here is anyone has the potential to develop a growth mindset. So what I wanted to do was share some examples of how fixed versus growth mindset would show up in an everyday scenario. So this was a collection of images that I found that I really liked. So if you looked at a fixed mindset, they're going to say I'm either good at it or I'm not. A growth mindset is like, you know what, I can learn and do anything I want. This one you actually will see often too. There's somebody out there who's jealous of other people's success, whereas someone with a growth mindset says they're actually inspired by what other people can do. Fixed, failure is that limit of your abilities, right? You got to that very end, that's all you're able to do, and I'm done, I failed. And a growth mindset says, I'm going to learn from that, and I'm going to grow, and I'm going to keep on failing until I can actually succeed. Fixed mindset, and this actually is one of my more favorite ones lately. That job position is totally out of my league, I'll pass. But that growth mindset said, hey, that looks challenging, let me apply for it. And as I look at some postings out there, I'm starting to get to the place where it's like, you know what, maybe I just need to go that one step farther and convince them that I can do it. Another fixed mindset, when I'm frustrated, I give up, versus keeping and going. When the going gets tough, the tough get going, right? And the fixed mindset, and this is another huge one, the difference between I don't want to take feedback, it's painful, I'd prefer not to hear what other people say, versus I'm going to use that feedback, I'm going to seek it and use that to help me grow. And then this one I thought really applied for tonight, because the fixed mindset says that's who I am and I can't change it. And growth mindset says I'm a constantly evolving work in progress. And everyone who showed up tonight, you have recognized that you're a constantly evolving work in progress. You're working on yourself tonight. That's fantastic. You took time out of a Tuesday evening to do it. And you're already exhibiting this growth mindset. So fantastic. We already know we're starting, right? So what does a growth mindset look like? And I thought this was an interesting piece of information just because it also helps you look for somebody out there who might be a growth mindset role model. And so it's somebody who has that motivation to learn, right? They show an interest in learning, using feedback, which we just talked about a little, valuing that learning process. Somebody who has grit and perseverance. So we've heard a lot this last year about resilience, which is that ability to bounce back. But grit really is, that just absolutely going after it, absolutely focused on their goals, even when challenges rise. And then emotional intelligence, which I believe this is part of this series as well. Incredibly, incredibly important concept when it comes to growth mindset and so many other parts of your professional life. So that begins with awareness of yourself, awareness of those around you, how you are affecting those around you, and that ability to manage your emotions. So all of those absolutely key to a growth mindset. I would say at any point, I should have offered this up pretty early. If you want to ask questions, I don't know if you guys are able to go off mute, or if you want to throw anything in chat, please go right ahead. I'm going to be putting a lot out here just from the research that I've been doing, but please feel free to interrupt at any time.
Thank you, Karen. And I'm watching the chat box and the Q&A box for you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we just talked a lot about what a growth mindset looks like, how it might look like in others, how it might look like for yourself, but why? Why does it really matter? So one thing is you really need a growth mindset to develop skills that are going to help you stay relevant, continuously learn, and adapt to change. And I am going to try my best at this moment to play a video. And because I don't play with Zoom very often, this is my absolute growth mindset piece of it. Share sound, share. So if I did this right, you should be looking at a video. Megan, if you can confirm for me. Okay,
Yes.
now we're going to hope that the sound plays.
I share your love of Carol Dweck and the growth mindset. It's a great book. We refer to it a lot when we have these conversations. You talk about your culture having to go from know-it-alls to learn-it-all. So this idea of just this adaptive mindset, how does one go from a know-it-all culture to a learn-it-all? And I could say at GE, we talk about the addiction to being right. Everybody has to be right. How have you solved that problem?
Oh, I wouldn't claim we've solved that problem. In fact, sometimes someone will come to me and say, hey, Satya, we found these 5 people who don't have a growth mindset. And I say, look, that's the exact...
We found them, we ratted them out. What do you do with them then?
I mean, that's the challenge, which is the idea really behind, I think, Carol's work and this going from know-it-all to learn-it-all is for us to be vulnerable, starting with me, to be able to say, oh, wow, I mean, I could have done that better. What are all my fixed mindset moments in a day? It's hard. I mean, we're human after all, and so therefore it's not easy to admit that we could have been better. But that's what is necessary, and that's why I think of this. That's one of the things where it's so important for me for growth mindset not to become new dogma that I am espousing, but to be really something that people inside the company feel is just going to be making them better. Yeah. In fact, making them better parents, making them better partners, better colleagues, better leaders. But it's got to come from there, because if it is just another corporate thing which they're doing for sort of Microsoft's sake, then I don't think any good will come off of it for them or for the company. But if it is something that they are more motivated by confronting their own fixed mindset, I think they will benefit, every individual, like I benefit, but the company for sure will benefit from it.
I share your love.
Okay, so now we're going to do our best to work back to the PowerPoint, but I particularly like that little clip. I really, one, Beth Comstock is a GE legend, so there's that. But also, I just really love how much Satya, who is the CEO of Microsoft, how much bigger could you get, who's saying, I have to admit that I have to be humble. I have to admit that I need, to learn more, and that just to be at that stage of your career and know that he needs to espouse it. He needs it to be better, but also that he can't lead it for the company. It needs to come from within. I will say, this was a couple of years ago, so it's a little bit aged, but it couldn't be more true for where we are today. And Microsoft is absolutely not alone. Right now with COVID-19, with everything else going on, every company is facing a crisis between the rapid need for upskilling everyone, the social unrest from this past year, what we're seeing now as what's being heralded as the Great Resignation. Last year, 40% of people got a new job. A lot of them were unfortunately let go as part of COVID, as the issues dealing with COVID. But we're also seeing like high levels of attrition. People are voluntarily leaving their jobs, moving into different ones. And I just saw a statistic today that literally 100% of people will leave their company if they are absolutely forced to go back into the office every day in a role that could be done remote instead. 100% of people. So that means within this next year, we are going to see so many people rotating jobs. We're going to be seeing so many people moving into roles. And then as people leave the company, of course, we have that period of time where other people need to take on their work or other people are trying to move into those roles. The need for upskilling has never, ever, ever been higher than where we are right now. And at the same time, technology is moving so quickly that it is as well. I mean, it's absolutely unprecedented. I also want to share that, let's get past this quickly. So, this is talking about the need to continuously learn. One of the recent pieces of work that I did was around the concept of learning as a new Uber scale. So some of Deloitte's recent research have found that those who spend their most type of learning are just flat out happier at work. So 74% are more likely to know where they want to go in their career, 48% more likely to find purpose in their work, 47% less likely to feel stressed at work. Now, how great wouldn't that feel all the time? 39% more likely to feel productive and successful. So learning is so important. It's so much part of that growth mindset. And then in addition to personal satisfaction, your ability to learn can get you noticed. So this quote at the bottom actually comes from Forbes. Once somebody's earned that reputation as an enthusiastic learner, they're far more likely to be tapped by decision makers for worthwhile opportunities. So that's your opportunity to go out there, get an assignment that lets you show off a little bit more, get deeper into an organization, work with some different people. And I also want to point out, as much as learning feels like a work thing, I mean, goodness, for the last year, everyone had to learn how to, teach their kids. My 16-year-old is in geometry. I haven't done geometry in like 27 years. So yeah, that was an interesting one to try to even start to relearn. Everyone had to learn how to use Zoom, Slack, MS Teams, all this new technology that for many people we've never used before. And then even like very recently, we've all had to understand the process of creating, distributing, and finding vaccinations. The amount that we've had to learn over this past year has been absolutely incredible. We've all had to go into it with curiosity and a growth mindset. And I really don't think we're done. I think we're probably right at the beginning. And as long as we're talking about learning and how we're looking at how a company looks at learning, I wanted to talk a little bit about this concept of T-shaped people. And maybe this is something you've heard, but this has been around for I think about 30, 40 years, but it's really come into light much more in the last 10, 15 years, brought into the lexicon in the late 1980s by IDEO's CEO. And there's this concept that somebody might be I-shaped. So I-shaped, they know a ton about one thing. So this might be somebody who knows a lot about digital technology. This might be somebody who knows a lot about, say, marketing. Then there's somebody who's a generalist, who's capable of a lot of things. It's maybe somebody who can go easily between a human resources role, finance, and knows enough about technology and knows a ton of stuff and can easily help out a lot of areas. This might even be somebody like the administrative assistant within an organization who knows how to get everything done. And the thing that we're hearing a lot more about lately is this concept of a T-shaped person. So somebody who's super expert at one thing, but knows a lot of things all the way across. So this might be a finance person who happens to know a lot about human resources and maybe the product that you're selling and some of marketing, and just can work all the way across. And what we're seeing with the real benefit of it, is, if you're taking that example of a finance person, is if they can work with all those other different departments, it makes it so much easier for them to go back and forth. Basically, it like opens up what learning another language would do. So if you're a finance person who can speak a marketing, HR, and technology language, your ability to go farther is heightened, right? It also makes it that you're kind of future-proofing yourself. And we're going to talk in a little bit about how fast jobs are moving and where the technology is taking us. And there's a possibility that any given job that exists today will not exist in 5 years from now. So if you are somebody who's super deep in that thing that's not going to exist in 5 years from now, you can start to future-proof yourself by learning some of this other information. what's being advised is if you are either one of these parts of a T shape without actually being the T shape. So if you're super deep or you're a generalist and you do not make one or the other, is how do you take learning? How do you utilize your growth mindset to become a T-shaped person? So if you're a really good generalist, it's the opportunity to say, you know, what's going on in my department, or what's going on is there something that I absolutely love and have a passion about that I could become the expert on? If you're an I-shaped person, it's an opportunity to take on learning in those other areas, you know, meet people, network with somebody in HR, marketing, elsewhere, learn about the product so that it gives you some of that really good generalist information. So as you're looking at roles, as you're talking about yourself, you know, start to think, are you I-shaped? Are you a generalist? Are you T-shaped? And it is something that you can actually talk about with, you know, somebody that you potentially want to work with, or as you're moving into a different role, you can start to understand how each one of these is important and how you might be able to move to a different shape. So moving on with the benefits of growth mindset, as I just mentioned, helps you learn specialized skills as new technologies replace jobs and create new ones. Obviously, you can help develop skills, you can access new opportunities. It's going to help you grow personally and professionally, build a strong mind, improve your motivation. This is another really, really interesting area as how much movement we are having right now. New skilling is absolutely necessary, and this is where the concept of unprecedented times really, really plays a role. According to the World Economic Forum, by next year, we're not even talking 5 years from now, by next year, 133 million new jobs could be created by this fourth industrial revolution, this technological digital revolution. At the same time, millions of existing jobs will disappear. And this is through various causes. It could be through like automation, or frankly, it just doesn't exist anymore, which does make it as possible that the job you did 3-5 years ago, just aren't even gonna, it's possible the job you will do in 2 to 5 years from now doesn't even exist yet. And it's even possible that the skills required to do those jobs are either unknown or don't even exist yet either, which makes your ability to learn and to demonstrate your ability to learn and that growth mindset even more important, because you have to be able to prove that you can be the person they can count on to learn quickly to take on these new jobs.
So Karen, I have a question here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being in growth mindset, having growth mindset, being in a learn it as much as you can spot is exhausting.
It is.
If you do it all the time. Do you have a suggestion for, you know, how to maintain the highest level of growth mindset without burning out? And maybe you'll get to that later in the presentation, but that was the thought that just kind of came up there.
Yeah, that is a great question. So I would say one is to take advantage of as much of this as you can on the job, right? 70% of your learning is going to happen on your job, your day job, right? I learn every day by talking with my coworkers, by figuring out how to do an Excel spreadsheet, that type of stuff. So there's a lot of places where you can learn and utilize your growth mindset while you're actually at work. So I would say, don't necessarily separate them, that you're working 40 hours and then you're learning another 30 hours. It really is you're working and learning 40 hours. So I would say that's the first. Second is, yes, there's stuff I learn at home. There's the opportunity to talk to people tonight, which helps me learn, right? So take advantage of those types of opportunities as well. And you know, it's a matter of balance, and it's a matter of I would say there's going to be times when it becomes more important, right? You realize, you know, for me, if I know that I've decided I want a different job, I want to work in a different role, and I know what it is I want to do, then I'm going to start skilling myself up there. I'm going to take a lot of time and say, okay, I'm super interested in an employee experience right now. So I'm going to take as much time as I can to learn about that. And I'm making the choice to do that trade-off in my life to put time towards that. But it's absolutely not available all the time. And I will tell you, we have a CEO, and he's one of those guys who, he works 70 hours a week, probably minimum. And then he's always talking about the business books that he reads. And I have no idea when in the world he does it. I don't know. And he will actually come back from Christmas vacation and say, I read these 7 business books and these are what they were, and this is what you should read. And I got to tell you, I do not have the enthusiasm to do that. So it's a decision you make for yourself. But I would say definitely take advantage of any and every learning opportunity that you get handed to you on the job or as you're volunteering or anything like that. Does that help?
Yeah, that's great. And, I think there's also just to acknowledge the ebbs and flows of our own passion and to be aware of, hey, I'm in a place where I need to work harder at growth mindset. Sometimes happens is like, okay, I got to push myself a little bit. And then to make sure that you're building in rest time too.
Yes,
which I'm just going to
absolutely.
do a plug for next week. Our session is resilience through restoration. And resilience is really an important part of growth mindset too, because growth mindset has to do with failure and trying new things, right? So I see them really intertwined. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah. It's a great question, because I was actually absolutely something I've been thinking about lately, because it is exhausting. It's a lot. So we talked about how important it is. We talked about what it is, wanted to go a little bit through what you can do about it. And Megan, the document you shared over had this great acronym, and we're a very big acronym company. So I wanted to go quickly through some of what you can do to look towards this growth mindset. So first, goals. You set the right goals for yourself to help you stay focused. So as Megan just said, and that was a great lead up to it, what is it that you want to do? Is it a heavy learning time, heavy time to work towards your growth mindset? But know that this type of change really only comes with real work. Goals for yourself might actually be around taking risks or applying for roles you normally wouldn't try for, asking for feedback, and whatever that goal is. Hopefully you've seen this another acronym before, the SMART goals, of making sure that it's something that actually feels like it's measurable and achievable and realistic. So use the structure around goals to move towards some of those things that you really like about growth mindset. Going on to the R of growth, reflection. So believe it or not, some people find reflection to be beneficial. They make it a daily habit. I have not made it there yet, but I'm going to believe the person who put this PowerPoint together. So just taking some time each day to think quietly, think about, what's gone well, what didn't go well. One of the big things that we find with learning, and as we're facilitating learning and tracking and surveying people afterwards, that reflection is so important on the learning that you do. Taking time, I've created a model of the who, what, when, where, why, who can benefit from this, what did I really take away from it, why is it important, where can I use it, that type of thing, to reflect on everything that you've learned to make sure that you're getting the very most out of it, and take some time to build that in as a habit. You can also work on changing your outlook. So some of the ones that I took away that I like the best here is acknowledging and embracing the imperfection in yourself and others. That is a growth mindset. It's saying, I'm not perfect. I'm a work in progress, and being humble about all of it. Exactly what we saw from Satya in that video. Also taking constructive feedback. And I brought this one up a couple times just because I'm really bad at taking feedback. So, or asking for it, and actually kind of bad about taking it. I always get defensive right away. And about 2 days later, I'm like, oh yeah, they were right. But it's really hard for me not to have that like guttural reaction of, why are you criticizing me?
That one's hard for me too. I'm going to guess it's hard for nearly everybody who doesn't have a really thick skin, but when you get to the root of it, feedback truly is a gift, because it allows you to focus and to have communication. So I try to like get through that stinging sensation of, oh, I was bad, or I did something badly, and move away from I am bad, or what I did was bad, to I can do it a little bit, I can tweak this, and everybody's going to be a little happier.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
absolutely.
like adding too much salt or too much pepper or a spice. It's like just changing it, and it becomes more objective, you know?
Yeah. And as you said, Megan, that different perspective is so valuable. And for many people, even giving feedback is hard. We train people how to give feedback at my at my job. So the person who's willing to share it with you is a valuable partner in your own growth. Number 3, I liked as well, practice the words not yet. When you're struggling with a task, remind yourself that you just haven't nailed it yet. If you stick with it and improve, you will get it, right? And you will grow as a person because you put yourself through that perseverance. You had grit and you moved your way through it. And this 4th one I liked a lot. I haven't seen it before. So I thought it was something different to call out, of taking risks in the company of others. So somebody with a fixed mindset is afraid of taking risks. So what they're saying is like, go that absolute opposite way, take risks in the company of others, which will let you get comfortable with the possibility of making mistakes in front of them. And that will start to train you out of worrying about failure. And that one too is one that I'm going to take on my to-do list, because it's not an easy one. Moving on to the concept of willpower. Everyone can work to develop a growth mindset in all their areas of their lives. Doesn't mean it's not going to take work, right? To strengthen your willpower, you need to control your own actions and emotions. The more control you have, the easier it will be to take those necessary steps to grow, to build that growth mindset. So 3 steps towards looking at willpower really is resisting temptation, taking some small steps on your way, and managing stress. And for me to really think through this one, I needed to put it through this concept of an actual fixed to growth mindset. So if I wanted to move from that position is totally out of my league, I'm not going to even try, to that job position looks challenging. First, to resist temptation, I would say my first temptation, my first thought is going to be, nope, absolutely not. Just pass it. No, thank you. Not mine. So, of course, you have to resist that as a temptation. Take small steps. So maybe even taking a look at your resume, taking a look at what you can do, and say, check off, what fits, what doesn't fit, and then manage the stress through it, right? I've hit send on a resume or a job application and like just gritted my teeth afterwards, right? It's scary, but managing your own stress around it. So how do you build up that willpower towards that growth mindset? The T was standing for team, and like this idea of who is your team, and you frankly have multiple teams. You have your team at work, or your family, or your partners, board of directors around you. So if you haven't heard this concept, there's recommendation that you build a board of directors of those people you work with, your mentors, your sponsors, people you work with to help kind of guide you, just like a company's board of director would. And those people that you network with, that you connect with on LinkedIn. And if those people are your team, how can they help you with a growth mindset? They can nudge you, give you that feedback when you're stuck in a fixed mindset. And especially if you're working with a mentor, or even your coworkers or your family, you can say, this is what I'm working on. I'm working on moving from a fixed mindset in this area to a growth mindset. This is what they both look like. Can you tell me when you're starting to see me exhibit these behaviors that would be fixed? They can be role models for that growth mindset. And the great thing is all those people around you have multiple things that you can learn from each of those people. So you can exercise your growth mindset by being curious around them and learning from them. And finally, the end of growth, habits. So of course, healthy habits. if you were to train for a marathon, you would change your behaviors. In addition to running and a whole lot, I don't recommend it. You would be eating more and better, hopefully, sleeping a lot more, and sticking to a pretty strong schedule to get that all in. Well, this is the same thing, right? Cultivating a growth mindset takes work, like Megan mentioned, and it also takes a physical toll. So you want to eat well, keep a good schedule, respect your me time. And there are also a couple healthy mental habits that I would recommend to work on as well. So paying attention to your words and thoughts. By starting to pay attention to the words you speak, even the words in your mind, you can start to see, are they positive? Are they negative? If your words are low or dark, the results might actually be as well. So listen to what you're saying and thinking. Censor yourself, be your own guide, and then you can move yourself into this world of growth mindset. Replace the negative thoughts with more positive ones. Also, to stop seeking approval from others. Approval from others is definitely a fixed mindset thinking, right? And can prevent that growth. Cultivate your own self-acceptance and self-approval. And then own your attitude. So if you value having a growth mindset, then take the time and make the effort to own it and develop it. Persist and the opportunities will come for you, and cultivate resilience along the way. You are actually spending time remolding how your mind works, what your immediate reactions are. And that's a really, really cool thing. And it does take work. Definitely takes both physical and mental habits to change that.
And it can be done. It truly
It
can be
absolutely
done.
can.
This is the big term is, the big medical term is neuroplasticity. We can create new thought patterns, new thought processes, and shift our perception. Yeah. And I just think that's such an exciting thing. You can teach old dogs new tricks. I've seen it happen with myself.
Yeah. And honestly, if you Google growth mindset, there are so many good articles of, not to overly generalize, but there's people in their 40s and 50s who are like, I spent the first half of my career as a fixed mindset, and all of a sudden it hit me at, somewhere in my 40s that this wasn't the right way to go about it. And, they're talking about how much their lives have changed because they have been able to move over into a growth mindset.
That's such an interesting topic and concept, because I would also venture to say for myself, and others, up until the last 20 years, a fixed mindset did pretty well in the work world. It is very few people had to be in growth mindset. Of course, they did incredibly well, but you could get by with a fixed mindset. And honestly, it was pretty much encouraged through our schooling and through work. But that has truly shifted because technology just keeps shifting and changing with new discoveries every day.
Yeah,
new challenges.
There are very few careers at this point that you could get away with a fixed mindset for a long period of time. It's just too much change.
Yeah.
So that completes the acronym of growth. But now that we know, it might actually be helpful to understand where you're starting. So I'm hoping Megan can share out this link afterwards. And I think I got it to you yesterday or last week. I found this growth mindset test. And if you Google growth mindset assessment, you're going to find like quite a few out there, a couple dozen. This was my favorite. It actually provides a percentage of where you are in the spectrum. So you ask 20 questions, and I think my results came back, you are 80% growth mindset, 20% fixed mindset. And it gave some like instructions of what else I could do. It wasn't horribly in depth, but it will give you a starting place to let you know where you are now, what are there some opportunities in addition to what we just talked about. So I recommend when you have a chance to take a look at that and try it out, or look up a different one. But it was fun for me just actually to see it and to see the questions they asked.
I just popped that link into the chat box. I also put in Carol Dweck's TED Talk on
Perfect.
the power of yet. So if you're really getting into this topic, which I hope you are, that's a quick watch.
Yeah. And then, so my last question, and again, I don't know if we can do in chat or even where we are on time here, is we can talk a lot about we can talk a lot about a growth mindset, why it's important, but especially as we're talking about building your career and talking to people and interviewing for jobs and preparing for the next role, how do you prove a growth mindset? And this is the question that came to me as I'm doing all this, is how do you prove something that's so intangible when you're talking to somebody? And Megan, I'll even ask you this. I mean, how would you go
especially in
about
an
proving
interview,
it?
right?
Yes.
In an interview, when you get that question, right? I think that one way to provide evidence in supporting the case, I think it's one way to talk about it is to give some examples of when you were really struggling or challenging and how you worked through it. So in the interviewing, because this is my area of expertise, is job search and interviewing and so forth, is we have something called the STAR technique. And that helps us with behavioral based questions, which are really truly about growth mindset and how do you deal with challenges. So you talk about the situation that you encountered. What was the problem? What was the task? Did you break it down into what was the action you took and what was the result? So we call that the STAR technique. So how do you prove you have growth mindset? I'm having growth mindset right now. I can feel my brain going, whoa, whoa, whoa. What are we doing? What are we doing? We're coming up with something. Yeah, we're going to come up with something, right?
And it's even, so the story I shared at the beginning of all of this, you know, I kind of accidentally proved it to a boss who was willing to hire me for my growth mindset by saying I knew nothing about these sciences before I started my job. And by the end of it, the actual scientists were asking me questions, right? So you can prove it. And a lot of interviews now are behavioral based interviews. So you have a lot of opportunities to be able to say, this is what I did. And I would say on most of those questions at the very end, you could tack on, and this is what I learned, or this is what I changed, or my behavior changed as a result of that, to show that you are constantly learning and you have that growth mindset. And but this is a hard one.
I think that demonstrating and talking through that, one, you're really curious. Like this piques my interest. I'm so glad you asked about that. I don't know the answer. I have never done that before. However, it piques my interest. I'm really curious about this or that. Those kind of phrases will demonstrate that you really do have a growth mindset. And then having energy and displaying energy, I think, is really important, because to cultivate a growth mindset, you need to have energy. You can't, it's not a static in one place kind of thing, right? You need to have movement. Oh, we do have a question here. The chat was disabled. Can you email me the link? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not sure. How is the chat? So no, okay. Thank you for sharing this. Here we are, Patricia. We're totally learning. You know what? I would love to see if I can open this up. I will make sure that you all receive the links that I've been sharing. Patricia, thank you so much for letting us know that. And then, you know what? I'm going to click on allow to talk for we have a very small group tonight. For the next 4 or 5 minutes, you know, feel free to, you now are able to ask Karen a question directly.
And we did get a question in chat. So how do you cultivate a growth mindset in middle schoolers or teenagers? And I will say, this is worth looking at Carol Dweck's work, because she does a lot of it around children and that age. I will say one of the very, very basic things, and it's the story I shared at the beginning, is stop saying you did great and make it feel like a period. You know, you did great, period. You know, if my child gets a B plus, I'm like, you did really great. And what can we, and try to move it into what's the next subject on, or what's the next part of that, and have it always be that it's never the end all be all to do a great job. Have it be, what are we curious about, or what more can we learn, or that type of thing. And it's really hard not to just praise somebody for doing a really good job. But studies absolutely show that the more you praise effort, the more of a growth mindset you're going to get. So like I said, I'm teaching my kid how to drive, and it's it's a challenge, definitely a challenge. But it's,
and
it's definitely
focusing primarily, this is tricky too, on what they did right.
Yep.
And so say, I like the way you boom, 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 and then challenging them versus telling them what they did wrong, or just telling them what they did right and leaving it at that. So that's one thing I've seen to be really effective. Well, Patricia's got a question here. How can you sell yourself in a job interview that you have a growth mindset?
Yep.
So this would be, yeah.
So I just wanted to add one more thing to what you're saying, Megan, is teaching a middle schooler or a teenager how to take feedback will go a long, long way for them to be a growth mindset and do so much better in the business world, right? So teaching them, here's my piece of feedback, and when they get defensive, because they're 14 years old and they know everything, talk through why you're giving it to them, what they can do differently, and teach them that if they come back to you and say, this time I filled the dishwasher this way, giving them the positive reinforcement on what it is like to go through that feedback loop. So I would say that would probably be one of the number one things you can do to help raise a middle schooler or a teenager who actually has that growth mindset and gets curious about what other people think about what they're doing. And then just teaching them, humility is an impossible thing to teach, but, talking through the importance of it.
So just a quick housekeeping thing. In about 2 minutes, I'm going to open up the poll so that you can all give Karen feedback. And remember, Karen, feedback is a gift.
I know.
And it's a great thing. So I'm going to open up the poll in just a few 2 minutes. But Patricia's got this question here. How can you sell yourself in a job interview that you have a growth mindset?
Yep. So there's always opportunities to talk about stories, and even, as we mentioned, a lot of interview questions are behavioral questions. So it's, tell me about a time you did this. So that's an opportunity to talk through the growth mindset. But growth mindset's all about having that curiosity, not accepting failure, that type of thing. So you get to walk through any of those, those 7 little pictures that I put up of what's the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. You can walk through any of those and show, where you did something that absolutely went through the growth mindset. And if they are not asking you the questions that offer that up, there's always an opportunity for you to wrap up, or even ask questions of your own that get to that of, what, I have a growth mindset. I love learning new things. What does company A have available to me to be able to continue to learn, that type of thing. So if they don't give you an opportunity to bring it up, by all means, find a way to bring it up.
Karen, this has been phenomenal. Super energizing for me, makes me want to continue to grow and to learn. Hope it does the same for all of you. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm going to open up the poll, ask you very kindly to share your feedback, and thank you again for coming tonight. The poll is
Thank you,
open.
everyone, for joining, and I hope this was helpful. And for those of you trying to cultivate a growth mindset in a middle schooler or teenager, best of luck to you.
Good luck.